The horrifying revelation of the doctor who vanished during his shift and reappeared years later when Dr. Michael Harrison reappeared in 2016, 7 years after disappearing in the middle of a shift. Everyone expected answers. What no one imagined was the terrifying story he would tell, a truth so disturbing that it would forever change the way we look at the healthcare system and the limits of human greed. Michael Harrison was 38 years old when he disappeared. He was an orthopedic surgeon, worked at Portland Regional Hospital, and was considered one of the best professionals at the institution. Married, no children, he led a quiet life. He didn't drink, didn't use drugs, had no debts. He was methodical, punctual, and respected by the entire staff. To those who knew him, Michael was the definition of stability. That's why when he vanished in the early morning of August 23, 2009, in the middle of an emergency shift, no one could understand. That night, Michael had been on duty since 8 p.m. The emergency room was quiet for a Saturday. Around 15 a.m., he treated a patient with an open fracture in his arm. The surgery was successful. At 3:40 a.m., Michael told the head nurse he was going to the break room to get water. She nodded. Those were the last words anyone heard from him for 7 years. 15 minutes later, an emergency arrived, a motorcycle accident with multiple fractures. The team looked for Michael. He wasn't in the break room, the locker rooms, or the cafeteria. His cell phone was on the office desk, turned off. His backpack hung in the locker. His car was parked in the hospital basement. But Michael had disappeared. Security cameras showed something unsettling. He left through the back emergency door, an exit rarely used, which led to an alley. After that, no record. He simply vanished into the shadows of the early morning. Police investigated for months. Michael's wife, Sarah, was desperate. She swore everything was normal at home. There were no fights, no financial problems, nothing that would justify an escape. Coworkers were interviewed. Everyone said the same thing. Michael was reliable, dedicated, would never abandon a shift. The investigation reviewed his finances, phone calls, emails. Nothing. No clues. No motive. Michael Harrison had disappeared without a trace. Years passed. The family suffered in silence. Sarah never accepted the possibility that he was dead. She ran campaigns, posted flyers, gave interviews. The case was featured on television programs. Witnesses appeared with supposed sightings, but none were confirmed. Police even declared that he had probably been the victim of a crime. But without a body, without evidence, the case went cold. Michael became just another name in missing person statistics. Until March 11, 2016, 7 years later, Michael Harrison appeared. He rang the doorbell of the house where he had lived with Sarah. She opened the door and almost fainted. He was thinner, with a long beard, worn clothes. But it was him. He was alive. Sarah immediately called the police. Michael was taken in for questioning, and what he told them left everyone horrified. Michael said that on that early morning in 2009, he was approached in the alley behind the hospital. The hooded men grabbed him, put a cloth with chloroform over his face, and threw him inside a van. When he woke up, he was in a dark warehouse, tied to a chair. There were other people there, all healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, technicians, all kidnapped, all terrified. Over the following days, Michael and the others were forced to work. The warehouse was actually a clandestine clinic. There, criminals brought victims of organ trafficking. Michael and the other doctors were forced to perform extraction surgeries, kidneys, livers, corneas. The victims were kidnapped people, homeless individuals, illegal immigrants, people no one would look for. Michael said if he refused to operate, he would be killed. He saw it happen. A doctor who refused was executed in front of everyone as an example. He spent 7 years in that hell. The clinic moved locations every 6 months to avoid being discovered. Michael operated on hundreds of people. Many died on the table. Others survived but were discarded on roads or empty lots after their organs were removed. Michael said he tried to escape several times, but it was impossible. There were armed guards, cameras, dogs. He was watched 24 hours a day. He slept on a mattress on the floor, ate scraps, lived under constant threat. The police were shocked, but there was a problem. Michael couldn't provide precise details about the clinic's location. He said he was always blindfolded when transported. He didn't know what city he was in, didn't know the faces of the kidnappers. They all wore masks. He only managed to escape because during a transfer, the van had an accident. In the confusion, he ran and managed to hide. He spent days walking until he found a road and asked for help. The investigation was reopened urgently. Police searched possible locations, investigated organ trafficking networks, but didn't find the warehouse, didn't find the kidnappers, didn't find evidence of what Michael described. He underwent psychological examinations. The results showed signs of severe trauma, consistent with years of captivity. But without physical evidence, without other victims, without concrete clues, his story was impossible to prove. And then, inconsistencies emerged. Michael's neighbors reported seeing him months before his reappearance in a small town in Oregon. He looked normal, buying groceries at a market. Police investigated. Security camera footage confirmed it was him. Michael was free, walking the streets, with no signs of captivity. When confronted, he denied it, said it must have been someone else. But facial analysis confirmed it was Michael Harrison. The investigation changed direction. Police began to suspect. They deepened their analysis of his finances. They discovered that 2 months before disappearing, Michael had opened an account at a bank in Panama. They discovered suspicious transfers. They discovered he had sold stocks that no one knew he owned. The money disappeared. Then the truth began to reveal itself. A former colleague of Michael's, in an anonymous statement, said that months before the disappearance, Michael was involved in something obscure. He had mentioned, in a conversation over drinks, that he knew people who paid very well for discreet surgeries. The colleague didn't think much of it at the time, but now it all made sense. Police discovered that Michael wasn't a victim. He was part of the operation. He had voluntarily entered the organ trafficking network, attracted by the money. In the first years, he operated in clandestine clinics of his own free will, earning fortunes. But at some point, he wanted out. And then, yes, he became a prisoner. The organization doesn't let anyone leave alive. Michael was trapped, not as an innocent victim, but as a traitor to the network itself. When he finally managed to escape, he invented the kidnapping story to protect himself, to avoid being incriminated, to appear as a victim. But the truth was much worse. He actively participated in one of the most heinous crimes that exist. Hundreds of people died because of him, and he profited from it. In 2017, Michael Harrison was arrested. He was convicted of participation in a criminal organization, qualified homicide, and organ trafficking. He received 48 years in prison. Sarah filed for divorce immediately. His family disowned him. To this day, he remains in maximum security prison. The trafficking network was never completely dismantled. Some members were captured, but the leaders remained free. The case of Michael Harrison became one of the most shocking in American criminal history, not only because of the crime itself, but because of the coldness with which he manipulated everyone around him. He wasn't the victim he pretended to be. He was the monster hiding behind the white coat. And the revelation of this horrible truth reminds us that sometimes evil is closer than we imagine, dressed in white, saving lives by day, and taking them by night.